Do, 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 do. Hey there. Ah.
Life is fucked up, right? And it doesn't really have a narrative arc. We like to think that it does, but of course it doesn't.
So in my podcast, I talked with Telaina Eriksen, my friend, essayist and memoirist and fiction writer and poetist. We discussed
There's this big debate about writing in the moment versus letting things marinate. What I have found in my personal stuff is do both. I think there's definitely an urgency to writing about things as they're happening, and you're getting a lot of details and a lot of lived experience that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get if you reflected on it from 3 years, But I think also the reflection, the time, it gives you a different vantage point of looking at the whole experience.
I really like Telaina's take on the advantages to each perspective. My initial instinct was that writing too close to the moment would always be bad. But I think that's not true. Some people just can do it so well. So I started thinking more about The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, a memoir about the death of Joan Didion's husband. She started writing this book 10 months after her husband died, and she finished it 2 months later. It was highly regarded. National Book Award winner, finalist for the National Book Critics Circle, and finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. And so I was trying to think about how she wrote something so powerful so soon after a big event like this. For one, she's Joan fucking Didion. Sure seems like she knows how to write from a point of view that feels honest and open enough to be interesting and powerful, but also detached enough for it to be tolerable to read. And she completely avoids a common pitfall when writing about something fresh that can give off a tone of, why does this shit always happen to me, or poor me. There's none of that. I didn't feel any of that when I read this. I think it's more than just that. I think she also centered the book around an organizing principle that allowed her to write something so close to the event, but still bound it nicely. And this organizing principle, it's right there in the title, The Year of Magical Thinking. She focuses on the crazy way her mind operated right after this event. Like the fact that she could not give away her dead husband's shoes because he would need them when he returned. So she doesn't need to tell you the entire scope of the emotional fallout from the loss of her husband and the deteriorating health of her daughter. She focuses just on the kind of crazy thinking she experienced during this period. And I think this organizing principle is enough to ground the book in her ungrounded thinking. Telaina said a whole bunch of cool things when I spoke to her. One thing that stuck with me was something that she said she talks to her students about when writing essays, is that
what your characters are thinking isn't nearly as interesting as you think it is, right? Unless it's in some context. So if you can put what the character's thinking in that context, if you can give them a scene to see and then let them see inside their head, I think that's really powerful. And I think that essays or short stories or whatever that stay entirely inside of someone's head can work, of course. I mean, many authors, have done that. But, the ones that work, I think, in a really compelling way, balance the scene with the kind of personal reflection and what's going on in the person's head.
So that's Telaina's take on what your characters are thinking, marinating, and how life is fucked up. Check out thecreativeturn.com for more conversations and videos and grief.